Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Micron. It is time for another update, and it seems we have managed to extend to even higher prices on this chart. Most recently, yesterday, we have achieved new all-time highs before starting this latest correction, and this was our preferred interpretation in the previous video. We had broken the relevant levels of resistance. We didn't have a full count within this internal structure to the upside, so all of this was rather suggesting that, yes, we actually kind of need to build an additional high to fulfill the minimum expectations even of this as a wave 5. So today we have to make some new considerations, especially since the structure does have a potential top in place right now, right? There is a risk that we wouldn't succeed to push even higher, at least not in a direct fashion, because overall this chart is still looking quite bullish. Now, let's provide some context for this chart before we get into the details here, because it is quite important. So, previously, we have been tracking a correction in a wave 4 for this entire period, right? We have been looking at the internal structure, and ultimately, the levels of support we absolutely needed to hold were for a correction in a wave 4, and anyone who would have watched our videos during this period would have had the opportunity to look for a position in this support area for continuation to new all-time highs. We weren't looking to get positions before reaching at least $337, and anyone who would have used this support zone and would have bought at least only after getting to this initial support level would have captured nearly 60% in profit. That's quite substantial, and you would still be at this point in quite substantial profit, and this is assuming that we actually do not extend to even higher prices, which is a very realistic possibility right now. Now, the main idea is that even if this as a wave 5 is complete, we are still preferring continuation to higher prices within at least one more wave 5 to the upside. Why? Well, let's provide the context. On this chart, we have been tracking two scenarios. Within one of them, we would be looking for a large wave 3 to be forming in a quite direct fashion. This is the yellow interpretation, where we would be tracking to build a wave 3 to the upside internally in this movement. This would imply a series of 4 or 5 patterns to continue this uptrend and so on for quite an extended period of time. Then we would need to actually reach the ideal target of the wave 3 to be able to reliably track afterwards a follow-up wave 4 correction. Well, that sits at the 138.2% extension of the wave 1. Let me see if I have drawn this properly, but we would basically be watching the $650 level, around that area. Again, I may have not drawn this perfectly, but the 138.2% extension is the ideal target for the wave 3. If we do not get there, holding afterwards a support zone within the wave 4 in yellow would have extremely reduced odds. So far, we have gotten to the 123.6% extension, quite promising but not quite the ideal target. Then, we have the white scenario where we would be tracking a more substantial top to be taking place within this as a wave 1, and this idea would allow the latest extension to instead be followed through within the area of a wave C. Well, even a wave C must be a 5-wave pattern. I am not convinced that we have a 5-wave pattern to the upside yet, so within both of these scenarios, we would actually prefer to extend within one more high. Ultimately, if we fail to extend higher, let's say we break the blue support levels, we will update internally in a moment, we would have to be prepared for an extension into the larger white support zone that would now be upgraded to $57.5 or somewhere around these levels anyway. Again, it does matter a bit to draw this as well as possible, but to get a general idea, you have here $57.6, there you go. Now, that means that we are focusing on the internal blue pattern to extend to higher prices. Still, we do not consider this pattern to have the full 5-wave move to the upside in place, and if we do not manage to extend to higher prices and break the follow-up area of support for wave 4, in the assumption that wave 3 has already topped, well, that means we aren't going to get this next extension. It means we would most likely see the white area of support to be reached. So what is the updated blue area of support? Well, I would need to account for the entire wave 3 to the upside, and I would need to track the levels between $361 down to $234. If we cannot hold the 50% retracement here, we have to be prepared for the possibility of a top to be in place. Possibly within this wave 3 in yellow, but probably more likely within this wave C in white, since we haven't gotten to the ideal target. Ultimately, the structure seems incomplete to me, and I find it preferable that we follow through at least within what we have here on the screen in the blue scenario. Now, in the previous video, we have been looking for this wave 5 to potentially have a top in place within one more high internally. We have been tracking this green structure where we needed one more high, really. We actually didn't have a full count, a full pattern. And now that it is in place, we need to consider two major possibilities. Either this wave 5 has a top in place, this wave 3 has a top in place as a follow-up on that thought, and we start the larger wave 4 correction getting into our blue support zone, and as we mentioned the levels before, you already know them. Then we have the possibility of this being really only a wave 1 of the wave 5 of the wave 3, which could allow considerable extensions to even higher prices. Now, in theory, we would typically only get one extension within an impulse, and this wave 3 would be the one that is extended in my opinion, which would be suggesting this to not necessarily be the most likely outcome, yeah, not to get this as another wave 1 to the upside, a wave 2, and then build this as a wave 5 itself. I wouldn't disconsider it completely, however, and I would still be watching out for such a possibility. Unfortunately, we are going to have to rely on the smaller time frame because within this structure there are many ways we could make a count work at this point in time. Yes, we have the possibility to have a top in place within the wave 5 or a wave 1 of the wave 5, but I cannot rule out even direct extensions within this as a wave 5 to the upside because within the latest developments of this structure, I am now able to track even the possibility of an impulse, and neither of these are exactly ideal, but I do have to point them out because we might not even reach the area of support for a supposed 1-2 structure within this area before extending directly higher. So far, we haven't pushed that deep into this correction, so far we can extend directly higher with very much ease. Now, in the eventuality where this would have built a wave 1 to the upside, part of a much more significant wave 5, I would still expect to reach at least the green area of support here at $433.3. It unfortunately extends into the blue support zone, so it's not going to provide you a particularly great opportunity to place a stop loss, and this is a common fault in the early stages of a possible top within an uptrend. We can consider the larger correction to have started, right? The wave 4 in blue. We can consider a different count to be taking place, a 1-2 setup within an extension of the wave 5 in blue. And then there are the possibilities of direct extensions, right? There is, once again, no evidence that a top is in place. I even have a couple of options. I could track this as something like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This as a wave 3 could extend to higher prices itself. It doesn't need to have already formed a top, although it is possible. And then I could even consider something even more bullish than that. I could be looking for a series of 1-2 setups in this structure, where only this would have been the actual wave 3 to the upside, and we would be looking for a substantial series of 4 or 5 patterns to complete the overall uptrend. Now, we can dismiss pretty quickly this idea if we manage to break some levels of support for direct continuation to higher prices, and that would be here down to the 50% retracement. We would have already touched the 38.2% retracement, in fact, which is the ideal target for such a wave 4. And if we do not manage to hold at least $481.4, at least we can have some additional clarity that, yeah, this as a wave 3 is not going to happen internally, and we will not be building this gigantic series of 1-2 setups where, yeah, there are actually a few ways to count even that. So we have to be flexible. We have to be aware that we are going to have to identify within a smaller time frame additional information, as within the larger time frame there are many options we could be tracking. And unfortunately, I can provide support zones that are quite decent in terms of probabilities. In this entire gap, we would be able to have support for this chart, for this overall structure, all the way down to the bottom of this wave 4 before we can account a more substantial top to be in place. What could become more useful, but I cannot really provide a guide to you for that, would be if we extend in the proportions of what is happening here, right? If we have, let's say, this as a wave 1, this is a wave 2, this is the wave 3, I would expect this wave 4 to potentially go with something like an A, B, C structure that could be fine. But if we start to extend a lot sideways, yeah, something like a larger A wave down, yeah, sure, an internal ABC pattern could take place here, but a larger wave A down, a B wave up, and then we extend to lower prices within the wave C, we can throw these ideas of a direct extension within this movement to the upside in the idea of an impulse away, even if we do not break internal levels of support, because the proportions would simply not make sense, and we would then have strong indication that either the larger wave 2 correction had started or potentially even the wave 4 correction in the blue scenario. If we also build an initial 5-wave move to the downside in something like this, that could also be a strong indication, a strong confirmation, as we would have strong probabilities of forming a larger A, B, C structure, if not something even more bearish. And for now, I will provide one additional support zone with the mention that we are not looking for a clear trade setup within this time frame. We are merely observing our possibilities, and as long as we hold here at least $440, we still have to even allow the idea of a direct impulse, a direct breakout, still within this wave to the upside directly. And I would love to provide more information within the smaller time frame, but it is still too early. We have barely just started this overall correction, and sure, we could be tracking this to be something like an A, B, C structure. For all I care, we could be building even a 5-wave move to the downside in this area. Even if this as an internal wave 3 hasn't reached the ideal target, it doesn't mean it cannot work out. It's just a brief guidance that I urge you not to take to heart, because this is within an extremely small time frame, yeah, 5 minutes, and it's not going to provide the most relevant data. What we truly want to see is an initial 5-wave move to the upside. That is what is going to provide us an opportunity, and besides that, we have to be patient because this structure can still take many paths. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed the content and want to support it directly, check out the channel membership. And other than that, let me know what else you would like me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I wish you a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.